The Japanese yen and Japanese bonds are literally blowing up right now, the two most important bond market indicators in the world. And all Bitcoiners want to do is talk about strategy selling 3,588 Bitcoin. The yen is blowing out. This is the biggest story in finance. And at the same time the yen threatens to bring down assets globally, the US government has gone on a media blitz promoting Trump accounts. What if these aren't separate stories? What if they're somehow connected in a global debt story of a system that's collapsing? Today I'm going to explain why these two things are connected, why the US government is promoting Trump accounts at the same time that the yen is collapsing. This is the great collapse that the Bitcoin has been waiting for. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Let's go. Twitter can be an echo chamber, especially Bitcoin Twitter. Today's Giddy Yay media clip is from none other than Donald Trump.
But I will say this, to me, cryptos are very powerful. A lot of people are using it, Bitcoin. They're using it at levels that I don't think anybody understands really how powerful. And if we didn't do it, China would do it in a minute.
Yay, he says Bitcoin is important. They're going to make progress on the strategic Bitcoin reserve that they've been talking about for 2 years and absolutely nothing has happened with. Meanwhile, the most important market in the world is collapsing right in front of us. Japan's economy is in huge trouble. Yesterday, Japan's 10-year and 20-year bond yield hit all-time highs. Rising bond yields means that investors' confidence in the economy is crumbling. You know what tells me that there's trouble in Japan's economy? People in their businesses are bowing out and filing for bankruptcy. Japan's culture is one that when you saw in the World Cup game when they lost, they took a bow and respectfully left the arena, even cleaning up trash after a game that they should have won. These people don't quit. It's not part of their DNA. And so when I see bankruptcy skyrocketing, that means one thing. There's actual trouble. And it's because of a weak yen. The weak yen has collapsed to 165 yen per every single US dollar. And with Japan's debt to GDP above 200%, this means that this carry trade that's going on all around the world means trouble for everyone else. What happens in Japan affects us all. There's a Japanese microanalyst named Yuto that says that the measures that they're taking are going to have massive implications on the rest of markets.
It says the measures being prepared by the Bank of Japan will affect lives of billions of people. To the people of the Western countries, I offer you my deepest apologies. This is not a personal matter. May God blessings be upon you. We've been telling you, the era of cheap money is dead. I believe they're talking about interest rates, the reverse carry trade. We've been talking about this for a long time. Private credit markets under massive stress. Okay? If they're talking about the reverse carry trade and they'd start raising rates like crazy, it's going to unwind everything. This is a catalyst that could happen. Now, we don't know who this is, but I assume what they're referring to is the fact that the Bank of China is going to have to make some drastic measures to save their economy. Now remember, everybody has to pay the piper at some point. When you borrow cheap money and you didn't truly make the right decisions and pull profits at the right time, and you get stuck in high interest after running cheap money for a long time, you're going to have to make some decisions to pay that debt off. And so that's what's about to happen.
What this means is the end of the easy money, the unwind of the carry trade. The Japanese yen carry trade is this. Trillions of dollars are borrowed at artificially low rates kept low by the Japanese bank. Investors all around the world borrow these bonds, effectively shorting them, and use them to invest into other assets that can earn a higher yield or return. This has made itself into lending products and private credit all around the world. When you see a private equity company rolling up SaaS companies or buying construction companies or HVAC companies, yeah, this money is funded by cheap debt, funded by what happens in Japan. And that's why I believe you're starting to see private credit be distressed in the United States, which is actually just as big of a market and looks exactly the same as the subprime crisis in 2006 and 2007. Except all of these PE companies are privately held and all of their investments aren't marked to market every single day like they were with mortgage rates. And you're starting to see it with redemptions. All of these private equity firms, Apollo, KKR, Blackstone, are all getting out of these instruments where they are underwater and locked up in long-term investment vehicles with rates that they now owe at a higher rate than what they borrowed at. And this means trouble for the stock market. This is going to be the catalyst that causes the Fed to print, because the stock market is the thing that is too big to fail now. The only thing that America makes is financialized products. We defend the world, and as a form of payment, we export dollars as a form of indentured servitude to the United States all across the globe. The problem with the United States economy is this. Given that we don't really make anything, we don't produce anything, when the stocks go down, there is no there. And this is why this chart should stop you in your tracks. Why is consumer sentiment at an all-time low even when stocks are at all-time highs? And that's because of the impact of inflation. What we actually feel in the real world is not what we're seeing on the charts when we look at our retirement accounts. The S&P 500 and the Dow continue to make all-time highs. In fact, the Dow has made its sixth $1,000 jump this year alone. And this is where we cross the bridge with Trump accounts. We have less and less people buying into the dollar hegemony all across the globe. While the Japanese yen is unwinding, confidence in buying U.S. debt is also unwinding. And so the currency is collapsing under the weight of all of this debt that cannot be repaid. And so the person on the other side of the currency collapsing is you. There always needs to be another patsy.
Essentially two players to the game. If everybody understood how it worked and was trying to short the currency and long the assets, would that just have essentially crashed the system? Does it require peasants on the other side having their life debased to allow it to work?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, basically, the money only works as long as people are holding it, and that's also why developing market currencies fail more quickly. Is it's harder for them to kind of maintain the system in a stable way, and there's not a lot of reason for them to want to hold the currency. They'd rather, if they're going to own currency, they'd rather own dollars or pounds, not pesos. And so entities don't want to hold the currency. And so it collapses quicker. But yeah, basically the system is based on having people hold the currency in the bonds while other people are literally shorting it, and growing it by shorting it. Ironically, when you borrow money or when a bank lends money, it's creating more broad money. It's literally levering up the money. You're putting more broad currency units into the system. So by shorting it, you're also helping to grow the number of units, and you're benefiting. And those that are unlevered, that are just earning that money or that are storing some of that money in a savings account, they're the ones that are...
One of the ways that you can get out from underneath of a collapsing currency is by borrowing from a stronger money into a deflating currency. And that's exactly what the founders of Ledn noticed. And that's why they created Ledn, a way for you to borrow in Bitcoin, the superior asset that's always going up in value relative to dollars. You can use your Bitcoin to borrow up to 50% loan to value. So if you post $1,000 in Bitcoin collateral, you can get a $500 fiat loan in your account in less than 6 hours and at half the rates of a credit card with no credit checks. Stay sovereign, never sell the superior asset. It's going up forever, Laura. Use the QR codes to get started with Ledn today. The Bitcoin way helps you to be sovereign so that when and if the system does collapse, you're going to be prepared with a money that's outside of the current financial system. And that's Bitcoin. Members of their team will teach you how to do this privately, safely, securely, and confident so that you and your family can be prepared when the collapse happens in the financial system. Don't wait till tomorrow to schedule a free 30-minute call. On July 4th, the Trump accounts went live. It's where the U.S. government will contribute up to $1,000 for, I think, kids born between 2025 and some other date. And you can invest post-tax dollars, which you will be taxed at a later rate if you take it out. Then your kids can roll this into an IRA, use it to buy a house or start a business. One of the things that I think is interesting about this whole thing isn't the idea or the concept. It's the coordination. And that implies one thing to me. The U.S. government is in trouble. Everywhere you turn online, you're seeing coverage about Trump accounts.
Thank you, Melissa. Well, families signed up more than 6 million children for Trump accounts ahead of the July 4th launch.
Here's Scott Besant.
So, and also one of the goals here is to show if someone gets the $1,000 when they're born, the power of long-term compounding up until age 18. Then children can, they're adults, they can take it out if they want to start a business, use it for school, for a down payment on a house, or they can roll it into an IRA. And I think it's the importance here of financial literacy.
Here's the game plan. Let me connect the dots for you. There's no more buyers of U.S. debt. U.S. Treasury holdings from other governments is down to its lowest levels ever, and it continues to decline rapidly. So who is the new buyer of debt? They need other people, mainly you and me, to invest our hard-earned dollars to prop up this system. The collateral that we have in the United States isn't gold, and it's no longer U.S. Treasuries. It's our stock market. So our stock market has to remain propped up for our economy and our financial system to function. The most dangerous thing that you can listen to is this idea about compound interest of investing in the United States stock market. If you invested $1 in 1870, it'd be worth $35,000 today. But one of the things they don't tell you is all of these lost decades and periods of time where people invested their money and nothing happened. Markets went sideways because the markets were overvalued and a bubble burst because of exuberance in the amount of debt that was in the system. This happens to this single group of people every 40 to 50 years. From 1929 to 1949, it did nothing. From 1968 to 1983, it did nothing. From 2000 to 2013, it did nothing. What the United States government needs right now is a patsy. And this is why it does not make any sense for you to be on zero with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the only thing right now that is outside of the existing system, that isn't tied to what happens in the Japanese bond market or the Japanese yen carry trade, or what happens to US stocks. Bitcoin is a fixed supply asset, and our government will have to print money. Listen to what Larry had to say in his latest conversation with Nico.
This is one of the best investment opportunities out there, if not the best. It actually is the best, in my opinion, if you can handle the volatility. And that therefore, that having a zero allocation to it is just absolutely nuts. I mean, I spend a lot of my time not talking to young people. More, it's funny, it's interesting. I think your generation gets it much more so than my generation. Obviously I hang around with people that are in my generation and they don't get it. I mean, most of them don't get it. They think it's a Ponzi. They think it's bullshit, whatever. Gold people can't touch it and feel it. They don't understand that all money's a ledger. I mean, there are all kinds of objections to it. And I just try to point out to them, well, look, it's incredibly asymmetric. I think it's going to go up 10x and then 10x again. So, you can afford to lose 2% of your net worth. Why don't you put 2% of your net worth in it? And if it goes up 10x twice, that's then 200% of your net worth. You know what I mean? And so you'll be very glad you did it. And whereas if you put zero in, you don't get that ride. So, it's, I don't know. I mean, I was saying to somebody the other day, I mean, it feels to me, and I think Saylor says it, he made a lot of money. He made himself a billionaire, partly his company, but also partly because he made huge investments in network businesses. I mean, he's a big investor in Amazon and Facebook and so on and so forth. These businesses, networks that the networks that everybody needs, and people don't fully understand, and that are going to grow in adoption to kind of the entire world. They're the best investments in the history of mankind. I mean, I went back and I studied. If you bought Ford Motor Company on the IPO and held it to today, you'd have done well. Or I don't know, General Electric or Warehouse or any of the great, Johnson & Johnson, any of the great American companies have done extremely well. But over the course of, 50, 60, 70 years, and in, when the internet came along, it created these network businesses. And it's just stunning. I mean, the internet really only got going in 2000. Even then, it was still kind of nascent. So we're 25 years into it. And, you've got Google's up 22,000%. I mean,
that's crazy.
I mean, it's just, there's never been anything like it. So when you buy into a network that's going to get adopted by everybody, the returns are just insane. And, my opinion is that Bitcoin is the monetary network of the future. And even though today it's still kind of stumbling along and not that many people have adopted it, it ultimately will be adopted by everybody. And when it is, guess what? These are 5 million a coin or more. So, because there's a fixed supply. I mean,
my concluding thoughts, these two things aren't separate. The yen unwinding and the Trump accounts being announced at the same time are not a coincidence. The stock market needs to continue to be propped up in order for this economy to work. They need your dollars because they're not getting them from anywhere else. And even if the value of your stocks continue to go up and grow, something doesn't still feel right. And that's because of the inflationary pressure on the economy from the growing amounts of debt and unfettered accountability from our government officials. Bitcoin is the life raft. And that's why we give you opportunities to stack Bitcoin in multiple ways, not just buying Bitcoin from an exchange. You can also buy it through Bitcoin mining. Give your money to SAS Mining, and they will set you up with a state-of-the-art advanced Bitcoin mining machine. They'll host it for you, manage repairs for you, give you the most affordable electricity contract rates in the world. And they just send sat straight to your wallet, so you stay sovereign. Use the QR code to get started with SAS Mining today. And subscribe to the channel if you already haven't. We drop fire 7 days a week. We try to connect the signal from the noise out there for all of you who watch us faithfully. This is Dante Coco Bitcoin Simply. Happy stacking.